So we'll get started now with the closing session for this year's KR conference. So I have just a couple slides to kind of go over what happened here and share a couple statistics. And then the second part of the presentation will be focusing on KR 2022. Okay, so let's get started here. So just briefly in numbers, what have we had this year in the program? So last week we had 3 days with 7 tutorials and 6 workshops. We also had a doctoral consortium this year with 9 DC students, 5 invited speakers, 1 each day, a total of 20 technical sessions. So we had just 2 sessions in parallel across the week. And in total, 87 contributed talks, so 60 long, 15 short, and 12 in the recently published research track. And as well, this year, we had some informal discussions held in Gather, so there was 4 of those. Okay, so now let me share a bit of the numbers. Yeah, so you heard in the opening session that we had about 850 registered participants. So in the end, we didn't have quite as many as that in terms of participation. Of course, given the virtual format, it's rather challenging to get exact numbers on participation. But Paolo Ferri very nicely was able to come up with some statistics from the Zoom sessions. And so what we see here on the top graphic, it gives the total number of unique attendees cumulatively over the conference. So we see that already in just the first 3 days, so the workshop and tutorial portion, we had almost 400 unique participants. And we still gained quite a few new ones this week. Even today, there's actually some new people who joined. So a total of 661 unique attendees on Zoom. Now, of course, these numbers have to be taken a little bit with a grain of salt, and we can expect that the total number of people participating is a bit higher than this, simply because we have had here in Rome, for instance, people who are attending the conference physically, and we're not necessarily logging into any of the Zoom sessions. And we also have the case of people who are maybe attending from very different parts of the world, where potentially some of them did choose to watch some of the recordings, but may not have logged into the Zoom sessions. So in the second graphic, we have a bit of a breakdown in terms of how much of KR people were viewing. And we do see that there are quite a few people who just decided to come for one talk or maybe for a tutorial and so on. Nevertheless, we do see that there's also a fair number of people who did attend a large number of talks in the conference. So we have about 150 people who had 6 or more hours logged into Zoom, and about 50 or so who had 10 or more hours. Again, these are all really rough numbers, but it gives us a bit of an idea that there is still a sizable number of people who attended, significant parts of the conference, but we also had many, many people who attended just a bit. So yeah, I think that's both a good and a bad thing. On the one hand, yes, maybe the number of people who are able to attend the entire event is lower than in a physical event, but we do see that we're reaching a considerably larger number of people than we would in a traditional physical conference. Okay, let me share just a few more statistics. So here again, you have a breakdown over the days, and it just shows you how many people were attending for each of the days. So in green, this is on Zoom, and it's the unique attendees per day. And we see that typically we're between 150 and 200 people participating per day via Zoom. And again, that doesn't necessarily account for people who are not logged in or are just viewing the recordings. And in fact, the recordings are displayed here on this graphic with the gray line. So that's the total number of watched videos for sessions that occurred on those days. And in particular, we can see that for the tutorial and workshops, there was actually quite a large number of viewings that we've had so far. For more recent sessions, maybe naturally there are fewer viewings because it's just happen. Some people might take a few days before they watch all of this, but we are seeing some activity in terms of the recorded videos. And I'll just point out that the recordings will remain available for, I guess, at least a few weeks, using the password that you were given, and afterwards the vast majority of them will be moved over to a public YouTube channel so that people, a larger amount of people can benefit from them. So I certainly encourage you, for instance, to, you may have students or other people in your groups that could benefit from watching some of the material from the conference. We also have, very detailed statistics on all the different sessions. So just to give you a rough estimate of the attendance per type of session. So for the workshops, there were some smaller ones that might have had around 20 attendees, but we actually had 2 workshops that both had about 90 people participating. So that was the one on explanation and the one on hybrid and compositional AI. So these had really very significant attendance. For the tutorials, again, there was quite a range, some smaller ones with about 15 people up to some with about 60. And we also found that for many of these tutorials, again, there was also a lot of viewing of the recordings, which is not counted in these numbers. For the invited talks, we had between around 70 and 130 people watching during the live sessions, I guess about on average 100. For the informal sessions and gather, here this is not covered by our statistics, so I'm just kind of trying to, ballpark it from my own recollection, but I feel that the smallest number was about 25, and maybe we went up to something like 45 or 50. And then for the technical sessions with contributed talks, there was also a very wide range going from about 25 to 75. Very often it was more in the 40 to 50 number. And if you combine the 2 parallel sessions, because of course you can't attend both at the same time, then we're looking at about maybe around 90 or maybe 100, depending on the days, people attending at the same time. Okay. Let me just again flash up the slide with the large team of people who were involved in the organization and have been working for, I guess, more than a year now, putting this all together. And I guess given especially that this is an online event, I'd like to in particular focus on the contributions of those who are involved in the virtual organization, which is a really huge amount of work. So let's just in particular focus in on that. So just to recall our chairs, so those who are on the virtual conference arrangements committee were Stefan Borgwart, Marco Console, and Long Tran Tan. So they did a huge amount of work all across the year and in exploring the different models and working on getting the social events going. And then of course in the lead up to the conference and during this week, a huge amount of work there. Also very important to note that although Paolo Felli is noted on the previous slide as a publicity chair because he's the one who's been handling the workshop, he did consider, I'm sorry, not the workshop, the website. He really was involved in considerably more aspects than that. So as some of you might know, he was actually the main one who was working to make a virtual event possible last year. And so we greatly benefited from his experience this year. And he was also very active just this week, for instance, in coordinating all of the Zoom hosts and is also very much involved in the recordings. So huge thanks to him as well. Many of you got to try out, yes. We'll probably do a bit more clapping in a moment, but absolutely. Let us also note that a gather space was an important part of the conference this year, with all the poster sessions, informal sessions, and some of the other social activities being held there. And this was built by Alex Moses, who's a PhD student at Warwick, and who's also in charge of handling kind of all of the posters and getting them sorted and put up there. It's also important to acknowledge all of our technical chairs this week, so the Zoom hosts. So those are the people who you didn't necessarily know their names, but they were room A or room B some point in the week. And so there I've listed those who were assuming this role, which is of course very essential. I just put 2 colors because some of them are in purple. Those are our student scholarship holders who are involved in this. So these are typically PhD students. But because that was not quite enough to cover the full event, we also were very grateful to have some additional volunteers in red who were willing to help out with this rather essential task. Right? So really thanks to everyone for that, because as you know, really putting together a virtual event is just so much more work than for a traditional physical conference. Let me also flash up a slide here about the Rome gatherings. So although we're maybe not a large part of the conference in terms of numbers, this was still a really excellent way for some of us at least to be able to get together and meet physically and not just be present during the sessions, but be able to interact you know, in the lunch breaks, in the evenings, and the coffee breaks. And so here, Giuseppe De Giacomo, who is the main person putting this together here in Rome, he very nicely provided me with a slide where you can see actually not just the names, but also the faces of all of those who were involved in making this possible this week. So we're really very thankful to all of them as well. And then finally, I'll just flash up here again the conference sponsors. I guess with respect to the Rome gathering in particular for the coffee breaks, we're very grateful to OBDA Systems who provided that for us. So we had, you know, actually some physical coffee this week. Yeah, so maybe I just ask everyone to give a physical or a virtual round of applause to really everyone who managed to make this week possible. Yeah. Okay, so that was kind of the closing part with respect to the conference, although there's one last thing that we want to do with respect to this year, which is we're going to pass it over to our diversity and inclusion chairs. I think it's Magdalena who will be speaking, who will be handing out the prizes for the KR trivia activity.
Hi, yes. So let me see very briefly. Yeah, as hopefully many of you knew, we made this trivia encouraging people to talk to each other during the conference. And we just wanted to very briefly, let me very briefly share the just 2 slides. Just a couple of slides. Let me see. I'm not managing to share screen. Okay. So yeah, okay. So there was this small trivia where people were encouraged to answer some questions to win surprises. There were questions like, for example, a member of the conference, an attendee of the conference that has been affiliated to universities in 3 continents. That was probably a hard one, but we do have some people, and in fact, they're quite prominent, especially in this KR, for example, Gerhard. There were other questions like finding a first-time attendee, a winner of a Best Student Paper Award, and asking him his favorite drink. So then she likes apple juice, by the way. Sorry, I here forgot 8, an author of at least KR papers, and who was his supervisor, so questions like this. Yeah, unfortunately, there were not so many answers to the trivia, but we did have some people that submitted their answers complete and on time. And it's my great pleasure to announce that the first place winner of this trivia was Megan herself. Our program chair was also very actively talking to people and finding out the information, and was the first person to submit all the answers correctly. Then she was followed by Tony Kohn and Renata Wasserman, who also submitted the form almost complete and early. So congratulations to the 3 of you. We will get in touch with you to give you your prizes, which will be an Amazon Gutschein, so that you can buy yourself something nice. So that's all from my side. It was just a very short intervention, but we wanted to announce the winners of the trivia. Yeah, I don't know, maybe if we want to keep up these kinds of games in the future, it would be good to hear your opinion. And, yeah, and hopefully in the future we have more active participation. Okay, that's all from my side. Thank you.
Okay.
So congratulations, Megan, Tony, and Renata. Thank you very much for participating.
Great stuff. Okay, so as they say in soccer, after the game is before the game. There will be, of course, a KR 22 next year, and we will just have a few words.
Can I very briefly say something? I just wanted to say that even though Megan is the program chair, she did not see the form before. She played according to the rules. She had nothing to do with the organization of the game, okay? I just want to clarify that. That she was as new to the rules and the questions as any other participant. Sorry for the interruption.
I can see she's quite embarrassed about this. Okay. Anyway, let me just share a couple of slides and then I'll be handing over to the local chair. Over Arielle, just a second, if I can do that. Okay, this is about next year's KR. It's going to be with FLOC, the Federated Logic Conference, I guess for the first time ever. It'll be in Haifa, July 31st through August 5. Of course, FLOC will go on another few days until the 12th, I believe. Well, I'll be the general chair, and Gabi and Tommy will be the program chairs who will do most of the work. Well, we've been busy already because, as you know, there's not much time till next July. So I'll just flash a slide where you can see the people who will be involved with the organization of the conference. So we've got already everybody on board. The main thing I want to say is that the format will be pretty much the same as this year. So besides having, of course, the main conference track, there will be special sessions and tracks like the applications and systems track, the special session on KR and machine learning, which has been pretty popular, and also the special session on KR and robotics. And we will then again have the recent published sort of paper track as well. So it will be the same kind of format, and the plan is to have the paper deadline. Well, it has to be fairly early next year, so the plan is to have it sometime in February, which will be rather shortly after ICHCAI, but that is, I guess, unavoidable. And I hope we can see many submissions anyway. And with these words, I think I'm going to stop here and already hand over to Uwe Arieli, who will be presenting some slides about FLOC and KR in Haifa. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gerhard. Let me share my screen. Okay, I hope that you can see it. So the next KR will hopefully be a physical meeting in Haifa, Israel, on the first week of August. And it will be part of FLOC, as Gerhard said, the Federated Logic Conference held every 4 years and brings together several international conferences on logic and computer science. So as you can see here in the schedule, KR is planned for the first week of FLOC. And it will be followed by some related conferences like DL and NMR, which will take part on the second block, the week after. And in parallel, there will be some other well-known conferences like LEAKS, ICOP, etc. The conference will be held in the Technion, so the venue will be the campus of the Technion, the Israeli Institute of Technology, which is the oldest university in Israel. So here you can see the Technion and Haifa Bay. Here is a glance on the campus from the computer science building, which is shown here on the right-hand side. So as you can see, the Technion is accustomed to accommodating a large event. It has the necessary facilities and different kind of lecture halls with different sizes. And the hosting city will be Haifa. Haifa is the third largest city in Israel after Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. The climate is usually in August is a little bit hot and dry. The average temperature is expected to be around 30 degrees. Israel has one main international airport in Tel Aviv, and there are direct trains from Tel Aviv to Haifa. The journey time is usually a little bit more than an hour. Note that on Saturday there is no public transportation. Then you should either take, those who arrive on Saturday should either use taxi or transportation services that will be arranged by the flock organizers. Concerning accommodation, there are three main areas for hotel, as you can see here on the map. There is the Central Carmel area, the downtown area, and the south entrance were near the beaches and the high-tech park. And there are two main train stations in Haifa near the south entrance and the downtown area. We will arrange some block booking, discount rates, etc. for whenever possible for some hotels. And here you can see some examples. So here are some hotels in the Central Carmel area. And as I said before, there are some other options, for instance, in the south entrance and the downtown area of Haifa. Concerning the entrance to Israel, so Israel has visa waiver program with many countries that allows to enter Israel without visa. This includes the EU countries, United States, Canada, UK, Russia, Japan, and many other countries. However, for some countries, visa is required, like China and India. We will provide the full information on the website of KR, and it is also, of course, available also on the web. So here is, for instance, a useful link to check this issue. Finally, as you may have seen in the program of Flock, there are some social events. There will be some social events like a reception, banquet. There will be a walking tour in Haifa. So here you see the Baha'i Gardens in Haifa. And highly recommended excursion to Jerusalem on the weekend between the two blocks of Flock. So as I said earlier, we're really looking forward for a physical conference, and the program and the general chair are already working hard for this event. So we all looking forward to seeing you in Haifa for a hopefully physical conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ofer. And Meg and I would like to say goodbye now. Thank you everybody for joining here at KR21. And we hope you got something out of it, and hope to see you next year again. And goodbye.
Yeah, thanks everyone.